to the Book Club. I'm Peter Martin. Every week in the company of former literary editor of the Herald, Hugh MacDonald, we'll discuss maybe a latest release from the sporting books or a classic that you just have to get your hands on. And I can tell you this week's book is one that's been talked about for the last few weeks. It's Alex Ferguson by Michael Moritz, and it's called Leading. Now, Hugh, as you know, Fergie's got more than a few books out, a revised book, an up-to-date book. You know, you talk about Fergie and everybody automatically thinks of the Manchester United glory years, but this one is just a slightly different take on Fergie.
Yeah, I mean, there's more Fergie books than there are in Springburn Library, you know, it's just, but this, I would say, to get cut to chase right away, is probably the third best Fergie book I've read. I would say that the first one was Hugh McIlvanney's autobiography with Fergie. Second one, and it pains me to say it's an old colleague, Michael Grant's book on Fergie, which is brilliant as well. And this is really good. And the reason I recommend this book is that it's slightly different. It brings in the sort of business aspect of it. You know what drives Fergie, what's Fergie's ethos, what's his principles, and it's in conjunction with Michael Moritz, who's the head of a very, very successful hedge fund. So, but while you could think it's a business book, it's really about the business of football as well, because Fergie doesn't get too far away from football, and most importantly, doesn't get too far away from these roots and what drives them. Yeah, well, I mean, the one thing that strikes me about this book is the fact that suddenly you have a manager who's speaking to a group of Harvard law students. Suddenly you've got the journalist from Time magazine who's obsessed by the way that Fergie, you know, led his business, which was, in effect, Manchester United. Yeah. It was a business, and it's £1 billion business as well. I mean, this is, and Fergie, I don't think we'll ever see the likes of Fergie again, because we might see, there's every possibility that we might see better coaches. I don't know. I mean, but we'll never see somebody having that kind of power, that kind of influence throughout the whole club. I mean, this was a guy who wasn't just, you know, in charge of, you know, do we play 4-4-2 or do I drop, you know, Michael Carrick. This was a guy who decided the whole strategy of the club. This was a guy who was in at the ground floor in Manchester United, moving into the old corporate stuff. You've got to remember, you know, I can remember when Fergie went down to Manchester United, things like merchandise and marketing and hospitality would be very much in its infancy. And he was hands-on in all of that. There was nothing that happened at Manchester United without Fergie being involved. Yeah, I've got to ask you this question then. There will be footballers at the peak of their game, or footballers who are thinking of getting into management. And let me tell you, experienced managers will be buying this book to find out something that maybe they didn't know. Maybe that there's a golden nugget that Fergie is passing on that they can then take on board. Do you get it from the book? Yeah, I think you do. And you get, it might be like minor stuff. I was talking to Gregor Townsend, the Warriors coach. He's a great reader of these things, and he picked up on something immediately that Fergie was talking about. He picked up on that you don't have to be in charge of training, because then you can just be in charge of one little segment of training. Walk around training every now and again. Let your coaches train, and you get an overview just to see how people are training, how your coaches are coaching, get that overview. It's slight little things that, I mean, he's not reinventing the wheel in this, because we know with management there's certain eternal truths, enduring truths that everybody has. But what he is saying is, this is the way I did it, this is what I learned, and he's very honest in this. He talks about mistakes he's made. I wouldn't do that again, you know, I would do other things. How to do, and there's some lovely stuff in it. The very famous letter to Cantona in the back, in the appendix, which is worth it just again for the admission money alone. And there's great stuff in his relationship with players. And I think the most important thing is how Fergie relates to what we would normally call the prima donnas. You know, people say, well, you can't manage the modern player now because they're millionaires. Yeah. Fergie managed Cantona, and he managed Ronaldo, and he managed Rooney, and he managed them all in different ways. And it's that ability to not be sort of completely prescriptive in how you manage, but to react to the individual, how you manage the individual. And just picking up on that point, and this is probably the key issue for me in the book, Hugh, is this is a guy who was brought up, you know, around the Govan area. He talks about his dad. You know, his dad, when he did speak, you know, he probably didn't bark it out, but you knew that he was a disciplinarian. Do you get a sense that
in the book that Fergie's ability to gain power and respect is something old school, or is it something that could be adapted to the modern day manager? Because as you mentioned there, you mentioned players from 2-3 decades ago. The times are changing. Some players don't even like to be shouted at nowadays.
Yeah. I think Fergie has changed. I think he'd be the first to say it's changed over the years. I mean, I think the hairdryer was there. I mean, you talk to the old Aberdeen players, they'll tell you, some of them, but you can't do that. I mean, you can't do hairdryer treatment nowadays, and Fergie knew that. So he's changed his approach to things. He's become more adaptable. But I think the principles remain. And one of the great things reading this book and talking to him or being at the end of the audience is the way he does go back to his dad. One of the interesting things about it as well is Fergie's the most punctual man in the world. Yeah. He's the most punctual man in the world. If you ever go to meet him, I try and go to be an hour early, because if you were 2 minutes late, I mean, I'm a punctual person as well. I was brought up that way, that punctuality is good manners. But I always remember him telling me that his dad used to come in the morning when they were going to work, and he would be smacking them on the bottom of the feet. Right, up, time to go. And you had to be up and time to go, and tea time was a certain time, and coming home time was a certain time, and there was no... So that kind of things stayed with him. And I think as well, a loyalty thing stayed with him. I think one of the great things, but if you had to sum up Fergie, and there's people that like him and there's people that dislike him, but if you had to sum up Fergie in one wee story, is that Fergie can still go on a holiday with guys who was his mates 55 years ago. You know, the Harmony Row crew. Yeah. Guys he played football with 55 years ago. Now, they've moved on a different track in life. They've taken other paths. Certainly paths that will not be as spectacular, but you can still do that.
Apart from the business end of the book, which you've highlighted, which is, again, different from the two previous books you mentioned about Fergie, you know, people who always like to get a wee insight into, you know, we're obsessed now by who did Fergie rate, who was his dream team. You do get a sense of that because, of course, I love the fact that he's named only 4 world-class players that he managed.
I know, but he is constitutionally unable to stay away from that kind of stuff. He just goes quite... It was like, remember we used to have press conferences with Neil Lennon up here. Neil would just ask answer what he was asked, you know, and Fergie is like, if you ask him something, he'll just tell you. And the 4 players are really interesting because I don't think you can argue with them. For the benefit of him that's not read it, I think off the top of my head, it's Cantona, Scholes, Giggs
and
Ronaldo. And you wouldn't argue with those 4.
Not a bad 4. I've got to ask you, does Michael Moritz achieve the objective in giving us a book that's, one, well worth the read, well worth buying, and has enough different content from what you know before about Fergie?
Yeah, I mean, I've read everything on Fergie because part of it's my job and part of it's my obsession. And I would say, yeah, I think that is well worth. There's enough flesh in that to buy it and read it and enjoy it. And the way it's set out as well, Peter, it's very short chapters and short things. It's a great book for a plane, a great book for on the beach. You don't have to read the long chapters. It's easy cut up. Okay,
give us your marks out of 10.
A 7.
A 7?
7 for me.
Okay, 7 out of 10, and you can win this book by Michael Moritz, Fergie Leading. And if you're not lucky enough to win it, then do get a hold of it. 7 out of 10 from Hugh McDonald. That's just about it from us. There'll be more books, the releases in the sporting world we'll be analysing over the course of the weeks and months on the book club, and also we'll discuss some classics as well that you just have to get your hands on. It's a must read. Thanks to Hugh McDonald. From myself, Peter Martin. Join us again if you can in the book club.